Belly breathing with a calm and quiet mind. This discussion about belly breathing, I may have to jump around different topics to get to the point. To me, belly breathing is a very natural way related to healing, the origin of where we came from the dust of universe to find life and become animal, and then to human with attached brain. And along the way, we lost something. We gained something and we lost something. Or actually, we haven't lost it, but because we gained brain and we get occupied with the use of it, we may lose something if we're not careful. So the belly breathing, or diaphragm breathing, as some may call it, is a way to notice something that we may have lost. For some people, this may not be a big topic. I tend to think women may be more related to belly breathing, maybe because of the physical construct. If I suspect, it may be something to do with the women giving birth, and they give birth, be prepared, and go through some difficulty. And if I imagine as a man, it may not be easy to do, but facing that to come in your life is almost like facing death. It's something inevitable to happen, but you have to go through. So you're prepared, and if you face death and be prepared for that, you tend to live according to what to come with some sort of a resolution, so that giving birth is kind of similar. And because of the construct, the uterus and whatever the organs that you got, and breathing to go through this process may have something to do with it. That's my speculation, but I think there's some scientific evidence that women may have better position to do the belly breathing. What's the benefit of belly breathing? It's a nature's way, as we are built, as I see it, and it's something to do with the life force energy, how to bring out the life force, creative force, bring out life, as in the case of birth of a baby. In Indian chakra, they talk about the root chakra. There's a sexual chakra above that, but at the bottom is the root chakra. And I want to connect that root chakra in the way that I see, and I have been talking in this voicemail about the brain and heart. We have a brain and we want to use the brain. We need to listen to the heart and live with a mission. That's what I've been talking about. But then at the root of all of that is the life. It's a physical issue beyond the emotion or the intellect. And the energy is there as if we are born from that root and develop certain emotion and intellect as we become human. So if we want to align the whole, as in the case of the chakra, or in China they talk about meridian, I guess, it's the similar notion that there are certain flow of energy, and if it's blocked, there's something wrong with your physiology or the mental health or whatever the balance that we are to have may be lost. So when I talk about the brain and heart, it's important, but then I needed to add to that element of the root of where we came from to have a balance. So in Japanese, they call Chi-Jyo-I, intellect, emotion, and will. or you can call it the reason, psychological issues of the emotion, and determination. And the root is like a will or determination in the sense that we need to be connected to the root to live without losing it. So there's a will of life force coming up from the root chakra. And I can relate to that from my awakening experience I shared in the other video or voice memo. When I went through the Vipassana, 8th day in the afternoon, I was in pain and I needed to get out of it, but I couldn't. I went to go to the ambulance, asked the ambulance almost wanted. And then when I thought about, is it because I'm trying to escape the pain? I cannot get out of the pain. So that's the thought that popped up, and suddenly from the root of my existence, like a root chakra, the energy started to build up and went through all my body, passing through all the organs and cells and the vibration. They call it Dhammapiti, the ecstasy or the bliss of the waves, vibration all over, like I was in the plasma. Not to pay any attention to it, it's just one moment of awakening in my case. So that root, I see it connected to the energy from my own experience too. And the energy is the life. And we need to connect when we live. Not just how to use the brain and how to control the emotion. That's just part of it. Chi-Jyo-I, intellect, emotion, and will need to have a good balance and alignment. And if there's a lack of it, there's some kind of blockage. In management principle, I talk about the glass wall management instead of brick wall management so that the things can communicate. Information can pass through. It's the same thing within our physical construct, the nerve situation and so forth. We may have the lockdown situation in certain habitual pattern that we may need to go through to break up and awaken our whole existence so that we can be a whole, balanced. And I totally agree with this notion of Chi-Jyo-I, intellect, emotion, and will. There's Soseki Natsume, a novelist, who mentioned something about this Chi-Jyo-I. If you depend on intellect, it becomes more like a thorny angle, like a knife, that you get injured. And if you depend too much on emotion, then you get drift down to the floor, and that's not nice. And if we don't have the will, I in Japanese, then, or if you depend too much on the will, then it becomes very difficult to deal with the society and within yourself. So that we need to have a good balance. Will is important. The energy, the perseverance, the strength, and the discipline that we have the power coming through us is important. But if it's based on the ego, then that doesn't work well. So you need to have a balance where you need to have a good use of your wisdom, intellect, and compassion with emotion, and balance with this strong will that we are born with and connect to. So that's why I said at the beginning it takes some work to understand what this construct of who we are. Now let's also talk about the calm and quiet mind. In meditation, one of the practice we do is focus on breathing, for example, and let the mind just go without dwell on it. So you learn to not focus, use your mind and let it be. Accept whatever happens in the brain, you accept, which may be very not usual way, because we need to use our brain to live a life in many cases, or most cases. So if you let go, you lose kind of a way, the habitual pattern. But at the same time, what you can gain from that is to know more about ourselves below the brain level, that the brain is connected to the organ, the physiology. If we are occupied in our mind, the body may suffer. The stomach is hurting, but we may not notice it. Emotion is going up and down, and if you're focused on emotion, then again, the adrenaline or the hormone balance may go crazy. Although at certain time, as in the case of how we are built, we need to use those hormones when we are facing the threat. If the stone is falling from the side and you just don't sit quiet, but you move. That is to save your life. So emotion, the hormone is important. Brain and neuron is important. But again, the determination is important, the will to live better in a holistic manner, not just egoistic manner, in a balanced way, is important. Just touching on what I said about the life profile, we want to self-manage as much as possible to live a life, not depend on too much on others. And I said something like 6 points. Living truthfully and what's the word? Sincerely. That to me is related to our determination. That's one of the most important things. Then in terms of application, we need to check on how we do it at work and hobby and relationship, finance, health, and how we are doing. So we see the balancing act of how we are navigating our life. So I talked about the brain, heart, and the root, which is the same as intellect, emotion, and life energy, or being rational, but have a human warm emotion like compassion, and has a certain level of life energy coming out naturally, and eliminate the blockages so that we can be a collection of different functions, but things are synthesized in a balanced fashion without any blockage in our construct. Obviously, as we are born and raised and learn skills and develop habit, we may not be perfect, and for that reason we need to go down deep to see and understand who we are, know ourselves. So the belly breathing is one thing. In Japan, in the Zen practice and many others, they talk a lot about the belly breathing. In the meditation, in Vipassana, that I had so much benefit, I noticed that the notion of the belly breathing was not emphasized. But when I talk about the calm and quiet mind, I also see in there, in that practice, is this belly breathing. When you are naturally breathing, your body is relaxed. The muscle tone is not stiff. Of course, you're in pain, it's not easy. So it's part of the practice to go beyond the habitual pattern. Even when you have a pain, you just accept it. It's counterintuitive, but get to know to the depth of who we are, we may need to do that. Whatever the psychological problem or mental issues that shows up may be connected to the physiology, as well as the physiology of whatever the situation would manifest in the way we use our brain and come up with emotion. There's Sapolsky from Stanford University talking about human biology, talking about the free will. And he points out that be careful, you think you have a free will, but if you're sitting in a hard chair, there's a statistics that indicate that your judgment is very stiff. Not meant to be pun on there, but if you are the person who makes judgment in the court, the impact of the judge's decision may be quite often biased. So, to live a life requires understanding of various issues, and therefore this belly breathing is something we may want to pay attention to. Let me just add one more interesting point, since we are talking about the subject, which is about my experience of Vipassana. The first time I went through this 10-day meditation, on the 8th day I was in a pain, and I came out of it when I let go everything. And this may sound a little odd, but some may have experienced similar thing. When we let go and the life energy start to spread and take over, that was a tremendously amazing experience. In a way, it's like sitting in the hot, warm bath, and the whole body is very warm and nice, comfortable, feeling like ecstasy. And when I had that experience, and my body was shaking and the whole blockage is unblocked basically, and the vibration is spreading out, I noticed my penis was erected because of the energy is so strong, and the binding is now unblocked, so that you have this called Dhammapiti, the pleasure of being with the law of nature spread out in the whole of your body. You may notice some kids, the babies or the 1, 2-year-old, they may have erected penis for no reason, but it's kind of like that. There's no sexual in the sense of the adult sex issue there, but just the nature's way of bodies feeling excited to what they can be, so that the prohibition is going away, and there's a ecstasy, the fun and pleasure of being in that state. So all the cells are vibrating and you sense it. And even if I talk about these things, often I tend to sense that the whole body, the spines and the energy is spreading out. So that's the connection I would call even connected to the belly breathing. Relax the body and not tense. Just remember, when we are under stress and threat, the breathing becomes much shorter. Instead of belly breathing, which is relaxed and longer period between in and out, to the point that you may experience that the breathing stops because you don't require much of oxygen to be in that state. The opposite is when you have a threat, as in the case of facing the bear or lion or whatever in nature. I'm sure that happens, and that's why we have this hormone, adrenaline, rushing, And when it happens, then your breathing starts to get shortened and pumping to get the oxygen inside. And that helps actually the energy of the root chakra as well, so that the whole strength comes out. In Japan, we talk about the power in case of the house under fire. Normally you cannot carry things, but if you are in such a state, then you have a strength that comes out of nowhere, as if you can carry the heavy, I don't know what, material, the chest or whatever, to bring out of the house to save it. So we have that energy, and we want to orient in the right way. And the calm and quiet mind and connecting to that breathing, the root chakra, all the way through the heart chakra and the brain, or the top of the brain, and balance out, taking off all the blockages. So I talked various subjects and topics, but the bottom line is, as I put so much emphasis and posted lots of calm and quiet mind related videos, voice memos, I want us to position in the way that belly breathing, connecting to our root, where the life energy seems to have evolved to make us to be like who we are, so that we all align from the brain to your heart and to our root. Each has its own sort of speciality, but we are to balance that. In practice of calm and quiet mind, sitting in meditation is a good way to do it. Focus on breathing is a very good way, because the breathing is connected to consciousness. You can change breathing by consciousness, but if it's natural, the breathing is connecting to the root, unconscious part of who we are. So we can see how we are operating in each breath, moment to moment. And then we may feel that spaciousness, the sensation, tingling sense, vibration from the fingertip, the palm, feet, belly, and all over our body and construct. You may not feel it if you are not used to the meditation and opening up all these blockages. But with certain level of determination, understanding, and throw yourself into that, whether it's 10 days meditation or 3 days or 1 hour, it doesn't matter. Orient and start to explore. And I'm hopeful that I shared in the series of this video, the voice memos, may help you. Some may sound very weird, others may fit to you. So the entrance will be different for each person because of the construct, habitual patterns, strength, weakness, whatever that is. But at the end, we want to have a good synthesis of the whole, balanced, as if we have a gyroscope to know what we are doing without thinking about it. And therefore, you can chart your course in your map of life and find a destiny and live a happy life as it's meant to be, while healthy.